The site of the East London Science School wasn't always as it is today. As we know, our school is part of a conservation area. This area is low-lying and used to be marshland, known as the Stratford and Abbey Marsh. The braided channel of the River Lea crossed this marshland because it meanders south of us to join the River Thames. Braided channels occur when there are variations in river discharge, the volume of water in the river. Our school building was known as the Clock Mill, which is one of the 3 mills which were built here when the multiple branches of the Lea feed back into the main channel. The reason these industrial buildings were located here is because the marshland was cheap to build on, and being north of the River Thames, the area is close to the City of London.
Now, it may have been before your time, but it's been over 18 months since this well saw any action.
Aye, I remember when the council swooped in and shut the thing. But why?
Because the London City Council have been making a new sewer through our grounds, and this one drained completely, leaving it quite dry. The well itself was dug about 10 years ago. Fortunately for us, Sir found out they stopped using that route recently, but we had to check if the well's working again.
Wells during the 19th and 20th century were commonly used for cooling water. In the case of the 3 Mills distillery, a well had been sunk in 1890 for the purpose of collecting groundwater, to be used in the distillery's cooling process.
The soil here is called London clay, but has deposits of ferruginous gravel, which comes from or contains iron, or iron rust as well. These materials are the only native building materials in the borough of Newham. There is also a layer of alluvial drift or sediment on top of the London clay, mainly found in the lowest lying areas. In the south of Newham, there are large amounts of alluvial drift and also marine deposits from the Quaternary period, the last 2 million years, an effect of sea level change. These deposits can be found along the valleys of the Thames, but in particular on the River Lea. This area at 3 Mills had an ebb tide, the flow of water from a high tide to a low tide, which is why the man-made island for the mills was built to try and make use of this. The navigability of the river had to be improved by an act in 1424, which meant a commission had to be taken from local landowners. They also had to do the improvement works by themselves, which they paid for by charging tolls. Another act was passed in 1571, this time to try and increase the supply of grain to the city by again making the navigation of the lower River Lea better. To do this, water cuts and towpaths were made. There is a memorial in the Lea Valley Park to distillery workers who suffocated to death in a well on the site in 1901. This memorial sculpture is called Helping Hands and was designed by Alec Peaver. There used to be a medieval-style memorial cross on the site instead. As official council documents state, the memorial is a poignant reminder of the many workers who have died in the dangerous industries that have thrived in the area. The formality of the memorial contrasts with the informality of the adjoining recreation ground.
An industrial accident is defined as an accident occurring in the course of a person's employment, especially in a factory.
Gin became a popular drink in the late 17th century, brought to England from the Netherlands by William of Orange, who ruled alongside his wife Mary from 1689 to 1702. Their coronation was known as the Glorious Revolution. The mill buildings were bought by a Huguenot partnership, which included Peter Lefebvre, a corn miller, John Bisson, and John Debonair, in 1727, who had experience in distilling. Distillery as a business boomed 8 years later, in 1735, because of the ban on importing brandy from France. Gin was now more popular amongst the urban working classes than beer or cider.
You are also treading on the city of the past, all of its history from the prehistoric settlers to the present day, packed with 24 feet of earth and fabric. The past is beneath us. It exists still as the companion of the present city. It is crowded. It has its own heat. 100 feet beneath the ground, the temperature hovers at 19 degrees Celsius, or 65 degrees Fahrenheit. It was once a little cooler, but the heat of the electric trains has quickened it.
You are now standing at 51 degrees, 31 minutes and 42 seconds north by -0 degrees, 0 minutes and 22 seconds east. The following happened here on the 12th of July, 1901.
Dawkins, let the ladder down. Pickett, since you've got the measuring pole already, do you want to go down first and see how deep it is?
All right, sir. Done. Somebody take the pole.
Got the pole?
Good heavens.
Thomas?
I'm going down. Pickett's unconscious.
Just try to bring him to the ladder, sir, and Joseph and me will pull him up. Oh, Lord.
No, there might be gas down there.
We need to get him out.
At least take a rope so I can pull you up if you fall unconscious too.
We didn't bring a rope with us.
Hold on, there's Elliot.
Elliot, we need a hand over here. What's going on? Pickett and Nicholson are unconscious down there. You're used to gas. For heaven's sake, see what you can do. Do you have any ropes? No, but I'll go and get some. We can't afford to wait for him to get back. They might suffocate down there. I'm going down.
Elliot, 2 men have already been overcome by whatever gas is down there. Wait for Dawkins to get back with the rope.
Barbara, I'll be fine. I'll go down. I'm used to little gas.
Well, don't go too far. Elliot, don't go any further. You need to wait for Dawkins. Elliot! Help! Please, we need help over here! Good God, it's full of gas now.
Let me through, I'm going down.
Did you hear what I just said? We've lost 3 men already. They're probably already dead. Dawkins will be back with the rope at any moment. Wait.
We don't have time to wait for a rope, Barbara.
Underhill! Dawkins, what took you so long? Elliot and Underhill are down there too.
Then there's no more time to waste. Help me get this rope around Banning. He's going down. Banning, what can you see?
Nothing yet.
I want you to tie the rope around whoever you see first, and we'll bring you up. Understood? Banning!
I can see something.
Who is it, Banning? Can you get the rope around him? Banning!
The rope's heavy, he's dead weight.
He's lost consciousness. Get him out of there now. Pull! Get him out and over here. Get the rope off him.
He's breathing.
Not long afterwards, the fire brigade arrived at the scene and recovered the bodies of Pickett, Nicholson, Elliot and Underhill. At around 1 p.m, local doctor George Hilliard also arrived at the scene. He found medical help to be futile for the 4 men and consequently pronounced them as dead. These events took place at 51 degrees, 31 minutes and 42 seconds north by -0 degrees, 0 minutes and 22 seconds east on the 12th of July, 1901.
The area of the former gin distillery complex had purpose-built still houses, maltings and bonded warehousing, which now makes up part of the 3 Mills studios. The council also promote the area by saying that the conservation area has a remote, detached quality that distinguishes it from the surrounding bustle of metropolitan London.
The inquest took place in the council chamber at the town hall on Saturday afternoon. It was conducted by a Mr. J. W. Atwater, the deputy coroner. A Mr. E. Soames was summoned to speak on behalf of the J. and W. Nicholson and Co. Limited, the proprietors of the Three Mills Distillery.
Members of the jury, did any of you see the bodies of the deceased men before we begin the proceedings?
Yes, Mr. Atwater, sir. We were taken to view the bodies down in the distillery. They were lying in the manager's house, in the corporation bus. I also overheard that at the same time, sir, they were checking the well, which was still full of gas.
Now, Mrs. Underhill.
No, not quite. We were due to be married on August the 5th, the bank holiday, sir.
Sorry, my mistake. Were you the one to identify the body of Mr. Underhill?
Oh, no, sir. It would break my heart to see my Arthur like that. No, his mother Eliza Underhill, who lives at 38 Egerton Road, Bow, was the one who did that. He was only 24.
The mill is supposedly the biggest tidal mill that was ever built in England, and even now is the largest tidal mill which still exists in Europe. Water mills work by using a flow of water to turn a large water wheel. A shaft is connected to the wheel axle, which transmits power from the water through a system of gears and cogs to work machinery, like a millstone used to grind corn.
To what do you attribute the death of these men?
To an accumulation of marsh gas.
Do you think the heat of the last few days has increased the gas?
Yes, I think the great heat of the last few days has increased the amount of gas in the well.
The opening of the well for some time would have no effect?
No, as some of the jurymen saw today, the well is still full of gas.
All three men who lost their lives were steady, industrious men?
They were as good as men as we could wish to have. Both Pickett and Underhill were fine labourers, whilst Elliot was a fine tinman.
Has the nature of the gas been tested?
No, but a light has been let down and it has been out, showing that the well is full and that the gas was caused by the water decomposing. In fact, a test was applied every week where gas was suspected, however it was never suspected in connection with this well.
The well in question had been closed for 18 or 20 months, and had not been opened since. It was not sealed, but it was ventilated. However, the gas inside was very heavy. According to other workers, the work could have been done if they had had a pole long enough. Men did not need to be sent down the well.
The clock mill had 3 iron undershot water wheels. The wheels drove 6 pairs of millstones at 130 revolutions per minute. It was powered by impounding the high tide to create a large mill pond which extended to 57 acres. The mill was operational until 1952.
Dr. G. Hillard testified that he was there when the bodies were brought up. He stated that death was due to asphyxiation caused by carbon dioxide. He testified that he had no doubt when the first man fell in and disturbed the water, more of the foul gas, which the water would largely absorb, arose, and that the other men had no chances at all. There is only one verdict possible: accidental death. The circumstances of the case were extremely sad, but they were lightened by 1 or 2 acts of heroism. There was the bravery of Mr. Nicholson, to begin with, because he was a man who understood gases and knew the risk he was incurring. The other men also knew, but they seemed to consider nothing but the desire to save the lives of their fellow men. This should be recognized, and that these cases of heroism in private life should be made known. I do not desire to differentiate between the men, who all appear to have been animated by the same courage.
The house mill had 4 undershot water wheels. These wheels drove 2 rows of millstones, one of 8 pairs and one of 4 pairs. The mill was operational until 1941.
Elliot, Underhill and Pickett were buried in Wood Grange Park Cemetery on Wednesday afternoon. The workmen purchased a grave and undertook to pay the entire expenses of the funerals. On Wednesday, the works were closed at 11 a.m. and were not opened again that day. Throughout Bromley and part of West Ham, the accident has caused deep sorrow, mingled with profound admiration for the heroic conduct which resulted in the sacrifice of 3 lives. The mortal remains of Mr. Godfrey Nicholson, who also sacrificed his life in the attempt to save another, were laid to rest in the church at Basing Park, Hampshire, on Tuesday, in the presence of his family.
In 1938, when both mills were still operational, 7 to 8 hours of tidal power were generated each day, with the wheels running at 16 revolutions per minute. This produced around 7 to 9 kilowatts to turn each of the millstones.
4 floral tributes were received by relatives of each of the dead men from the firm. Messrs. Nicholson sent to each a beautiful wreath of scarlet and white flowers, with great sympathy from the firm and in admiration of his gallant conduct. Mr. and Mrs. Drake and Mr. Joseph Drake sent to each a large wreath composed entirely of white flowers, with sincere regret and sympathy. From the staff, 3 crosses were sent, with deepest sympathy, and from the workmen 3 wreaths. Most pathetic of all the tributes was a crown of white flowers in memory of Underhill, from his sorrowing sweetheart.
A light from my life is gone. A voice I loved is stilled. A vacant place is in my heart, which never can be filled.
It was a town of machinery and tall chimneys, out of which interminable serpents of smoke trailed themselves for ever and never got uncoiled. It had a black canal in it, and a river that ran purple with ill-smelling dye, and vast piles of building full of windows where there was a rattling and a trembling all day long, and where the piston of the steam engine worked monotonously up and down, like the head of an elephant in a state of melancholy madness. It contained several large streets, all very like one another, and many small streets still more like one another, inhabited by people equally like one another, who all went in and out at the same hours, with the same sound upon the same pavements, to do the same work, and to whom every day was the same as yesterday and tomorrow, and every year the counterpart of the last and the next.